How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. We are talking about Workhorse today because there was an interesting interview that came out with their CFO and Benzinga. So it came out just yesterday. I want to go through it. He talked about the impact of the pandemic. He talked about his thoughts on the stock price. What are some catalysts that could send the stock price up? And what he thinks about short sellers. So this is again the CFO of Workhorse. So it's really interesting to watch. So you should definitely stay through to the end because at the end we'll talk about catalysts. And Steve talks about three different catalysts that could cause the stock to go up and could cause the stock to go down over the next coming months and over the next coming years. So definitely stay through to the end on that. Now, before we get into that, I do want to say that if you are interested in joining our Discord and joining our Patreon, there is the top tier, and I just spoke with one of the people that was in it. And essentially, with this tier, you are able to talk with me in a small group. The call of the night was actually just one-on-one because we only have one person in it, but that's twice a week for half an hour. So we can bounce ideas off each other. We can talk about portfolios, whatever you really want to talk about. That being said, I did want to also bring up to you too that WeBull is still running their promotion for 3 free stocks, and that ends just tomorrow. So if you want 3 free stocks or you've thought about WeBull or something, deposit $100 and get those stocks now. Now let's take a look at Workhorse. They were down about 2.5 or 2.8% after the market hours, but they were up throughout the day. They ended up just over positive for the day. And this is again one of those stocks that is probably going to see a lot of volatility over the next couple weeks, over the next couple months. But I want to bring your attention to this recent interview that Steve Schrader had, the CFO of Workhorse, with Spencer Israel from Benzinga. So Benzinga is a stock market news site kind of, and they do some good work, but I wanted to show you some interesting answers to some questions that were brought up in this interview. So I'll just play it for you and maybe talk you through some of the answers after he gives them.
Investors have talked about. I thought we were going to get some sort of decision from the USPS last week or a couple of weeks ago. Now they're saying, I guess, by the end of the year. Can you update us there on what do you know about the timeline?
Yeah, I think the post office, the only thing we can talk about is what's public. And the post office, I think, has always said several different times that it'd be by the end of the year. Okay. So I think we'll all just kind of see what happens by the end of the year.
So that just kind of reinforces what we've been hearing this entire time. He tries to kind of bring out if there are any updates on the USPS contract. And first of all, he's just saying we can't really talk about it too much, but they've just said the whole time that's going to be end of the year. They're not saying that's going to be the next couple weeks or anything like that or before, right after the elections. It's going to be at the end of the year. So that kind of just puts in our mind, okay, they are still saying this. We have to wait a little bit longer. Now, the next part's pretty interesting too.
Workhorse's stock has been just so volatile this year. It's gone up, it's gone down. Maybe moves were justified, maybe they weren't, maybe the market got ahead of itself, maybe they didn't. But what do you make of just the volatility of your stock? I imagine you would say, you don't look at it, but it's hard not to, right?
Well, yeah, obviously we look at it, but I don't know if we know any more than you. I think it's the EV sector overall. I think it's gone up and it's gone down, and so it's good being in a hot sector, but it also is good that we're actually at a stage where things that we've done 2 or 3 years are now kind of paying off, where we're actually manufacturing, delivering, hopefully getting new orders. So I think you try to do the best you can. You try to kind of deliver and execute. And if you execute, then I think at the end of the day, the stock takes care of itself.
So he's not quite pulling the approach that Elon Musk has brought to us before, which is when he just says that the stock is overvalued. He's not really talking on that. He doesn't really answer the question too much. He talks about why the fact is that the stock is up so much, and he's saying that's just because they're in a hot sector. I would say, though, that the sector has not been quite as on fire as Workhorse going up. Even now that they're down 50%, they're still up significantly on the year, I believe over 1,000%. So the fact that they're in the EV sector is great, but they are still, I believe, pretty far above that sector average. So I would say most of it is because they kind of got on the scene for this massive contract, and that's what's brought them up. Now, this does really help them out. I mean, we've talked about some financing recently where there were these options for people to convert, or these companies to convert their stock around $35 a share. So they're getting companies that think that they're going to possibly be able to raise up to $35 a share, which is a good sign. This wouldn't be happening if they weren't already at $16 now, and back when they initially financed this, I believe up in the 20s. So that's something that's worth considering also.
You obviously can control that. The other side of that coin is it also brings about attention from short sellers and people who are just saying this entire industry is just completely ahead of itself and not where investors value it right now. So what do you say to the skeptics out there who say that whether it's you or any other company, in this industry, that electric vehicles is, while a great idea, the valuations of these companies, yours included, are just too high for where they should be right now?
Well, I mean, again, it's part of the stock market, right? You have shorts out there that want to make that bet sometimes as well, and it's just, I can't tell you whether it's to me, I think it is the way that the industry is going. I think it's where the consumers are going, whether it be fleet customers that we appeal to, last mile delivery, or just consumers overall. So I think it's certainly the way over the next decade. But from quarter to quarter, and whether you're short or long, people are going to make different bets. I don't know if I can really provide any sort of direction for that.
We have talked about the short sellers with this stock. There was one recently that came out this week. There was a couple other ones that had come out previously talking about shorting the stock, and it caused the stock price to go down. Now, Steve basically says, okay, there are going to be people that believe in the stock. There are going to be people that want to short it because it's been doing so well. But the sector is going towards EV. The world is going towards EV, so they think they're on the right side of that coin. They are in the proper place to take advantage and to be able to provide value. So he's not too worried about it. He's saying that that's normal. I'll just say this so that I don't get demonetized because he said a word that can't be said. But he basically says, what are the long-term ramifications of the pandemic here? So let's see what Steve says.
I think long-term, it's both businesses, from a standpoint of delivery trucks. It was the fastest growing market in general. It's growing about 15% a year prior to the pandemic. And now I think it's even increased more. So I think it's the delivery truck business and the drone both kind of lend itself to more deliveries, and that's really kind of what the pandemic, I think, spurred, is people staying at home and getting more deliveries.
So he's talking about how the delivery van market itself is growing about 15% annually, so it's a good time to be in this. Also with drones and with the ramifications of the pandemic, it's essentially just a catalyst to further just push the stock up and to hopefully expand their business, especially with drones too being years down the line. There is more of a need for them now than ever. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, which is what I told you about earlier this video that you should stick around for, are the catalysts going forward. So he asked him basically, what are you looking for going forward? And I'll play it for you here.
At the time that we're doing this, but what is the next catalyst for you guys as a business? Is it the USPS contract? Is there something else out there?
Well, I think in the short term, it's the getting the volume up. We've talked about the third quarter in the earnings release. We've talked about just getting a handful of trucks out. Our goal was really focused towards the fourth quarter and getting the labor and the materials and everything in place, and the production line and the set of assemblies in place to actually produce more volume. So I think it's hitting the volume that we want to hit as the next catalyst. If the post office makes an award and we're part of that, that's certainly a catalyst. And then moving on to 2021 and getting more orders as well by the end of the year. So I think those are all 2 or 3 things to look at from our standpoint.
So I agree with him there. The major catalyst for them going forward is not only the USPS contract, I think that's number one, but also their volume. What can they manufacture? Now, their earnings call is coming up on November 9. You can see here, Monday, November 9. That's going to be really important. Hopefully they will divulge some information about what kind of manufacturing they've been able to do. Q3, I think that's going to be huge because A lot of people want to see them start to ramp up. They say in this interview they have a backlog of 1,200 vehicles. So they really need to start producing. And he talked about that in the video, a part that I didn't show you. But at this point, he's saying basically now they just need to live up to the expectations. They just need to put the pedal to the metal and get it done. So that is what we have to look forward to. Also, just getting some other contracts. But that is a really interesting interview. Again, I'll link it down in the description below. But I think it's a really good interview, just giving us further guidance. And it was just released, so I did want to cover it for you guys. So hopefully you guys got something out of this. Hopefully you liked it and you got, some good knowledge, some good information from Steve there. But if you guys have any questions, leave them for me in the comments. Again, thank you for hitting the like button. It really means a lot to me. Also, if you guys want those free stocks or you want to join the Patreon and talk with me personally, you can check out the links below. There are links to everything down there. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.